Good morning, everybody. So thanks first to joining us for today's Employer Roundtable, which is all about delivering corporate social responsibility, CSR, and environmental, social and governance, ESG, through skills. My name is Sarah Turner, and I'm a client manager here at City and Guilds. So the concept of CSR obviously continues to evolve, and what we've seen through the course of the last few years and in the wake of the pandemic is the rise of the conscious business and the introduction of more quantifiable measures of a company's sustainability and societal impact through the introduction of ESG standards. In today's webinar, we aren't planning to actually discuss the broad topic of CSR and ESG and the difference between the two, and I'm certainly not an expert on that topic, but what we really wanted to do is focus on CSR and ESG specifically in relation to skills development and showcase some great examples of how we're working in partnership with large organisations such as Shell and IBM on innovative skills-related projects and how they've invested in skills development to support the community aspects of their CSR and ESG agendas. Now, we're also joined today by RockCorps, who are a pro-social marketing and entertainment company that use music and culture to inspire action around youth engagement, working in partnership with large brands on key initiatives such as Apprentice Nation. Next slide, please, Joe. So before I start, I just want to let you know that the session is being recorded for those who are unable to make today's event. And please, could I just kindly ask everybody to turn off their microphones and their cameras, as we will have about upwards of 50 people joining us today, so it will just help with the bandwidth. And there will also be an opportunity for you to ask questions. So at any point in time, if you do have a question for ourselves or today's panellists, please could you type the question into the chat area in the bottom bottom right hand corner of the screen, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can in the time that we've got available towards the end of the session. Next slide, please, Joe. So as I said, my name is Sarah Turner and I'm part of a team. Oh, sorry, could I kindly just ask everybody to turn their microphones off? Thank you. Thanks so much. So I'm part of a team of client managers at City and Guilds, and my colleagues Gemma and Joe are also joining me today, and you'll be hearing from them a bit later on in the session. Our role as skills experts is to work in partnership with large organisations in the UK and globally, supporting them with anything related to skills and workforce development, which, as we know, is integral to the success of any business and key to organisational and economic growth. I'll be talking a little bit more about the work we do in the context of CSR and ESG later on in the session. Next slide, Joe. Okay, so just quickly running through today's agenda. So the welcome and address is exactly what I'm doing now. And then next there'll be a short introduction and some context to today's topic. We'll also be covering the role of skills in relation to CSR and ESG. But then the main part of the session is all about the innovative and impactful skills-related projects that our partners IBM, Shell and RockCorps have been working on. And there'll be some Q&A for the panellists as well. And then at the end, there'll be a little bit of time for reflection and audience questions before we close. Next slide, please. So, Global Skills Partner. Before I wanted to start the main part of the session, really, I just wanted to provide a bit more information about who we are and the impact that we make through the work we do. So for 145 years, actually it's 146 years because it was our 146th birthday yesterday, our purpose has remained unchanged, which is to make a meaningful difference to industries and society through skills that are high quality and meet the demands of our time. So we do operate as a commercial organisation, but we do have a strong charitable purpose and we reinvest our surplus back into skills. And I think as businesses are facing increasing complexity, rapid technological advancements and environmental challenges, the need for an agile, skilled and future-ready workforce has probably never been greater. Now, we work with around about 1,500 organisations across 80 countries. who have chosen to work with us as their trusted skills partner. And we support them with their own workforce development challenges, from early careers to technical skills to green skills, right through to leadership development. But we've also increasingly been working with organisations to support their CSR and ESG strategies through the lens of skills, to help them achieve a broader set of objectives, not only for their own organisations and their own people, but for their industries as a whole and their communities too. And it's kind of those examples that we really wanted to showcase in today's session. Next slide, please, Joe. So our impact, so we thought it'd be really useful to include some highlights from our recent impact report, which is published by the City and Guilds Foundation, which really amplifies the great work we do across City and Guilds through our high impact social investment, recognition and advocacy programmes. And the report is something that we publish every year, and it showcases the positive difference our work has upon people's lives, the organisations that we work with and the wider society as well. So last year, the work we did contributed £15.3 billion to society, and we issued over 13,000 green skills certificates, which is encouraging. It's a 38% increase on last year. And also 91% of employers who received a prestigious Royal Princess Training Award, which is run every year through our foundation and celebrates best practice in training and workforce development. 91% of those employers reported an increased ability to demonstrate the value of skills to their organisation's social value. So I thought it was useful to include that slide in the context of CSR and ESG, which of course is all about measuring impact and also demonstrates how CSR is fundamental to our business and our purpose. So we will be sending the slides out afterwards, so I'll let you read through the full report in your own time. And our panellists will also be talking a little bit as well about how they measure their impact, particularly in relation to skills. Next slide, please. So why are organisations investing in their CSR and ESG strategies? Now, apologies in advance for those people who are attending today who already work in CSR and ESG roles, who will clearly know the answer to this question. And as I said at the start of the call, I'm certainly not an expert on the topic, but one of the things that we wanted to do was bring together people who work in L&D roles and people who work in CSR or ESG roles. And we really do have a mix of people in different types of role attending today's session. And in fact, I think we do have some people who work in L&D or CSR and ESG actually from the same large organisation. So it'll be really interesting to know how many of those people are actually connected in the workplace, how many of them work together, and how much skills development plays a part in those organisations' CSR and ESG strategies. Over the past few years, obviously events like COVID-19, political movements and the urgency of global warming have put pressure on companies to make more responsible choices. And as a result, more companies are incorporating sustainable strategies, including human sustainability, which I think is a really interesting concept, and adopting more socially responsible practices to realign their purpose and their operations. And we know that consumer demands have changed. You know, more people are making a conscious effort to choose companies that are committed to addressing social, economic, and environmental issues. I think 34% of consumers have stopped purchasing from certain brands due to ethical or sustainability related concerns. And research has proven that conscious business practices also lead to better employee retention, more innovation, and better customer loyalty and increased revenue. We know that talented staff, and in particular millennials and Gen Zers, are now looking to work in more purposeful and sustainable businesses. And efforts here are definitely returning higher retention rates. And I know purpose is subjective, but for some, it really does come down to working for an organisation that has got a purpose beyond profit and is having a positive impact on society. I think 75% of Gen Zers and millennials say that an organisation's community engagement and societal impact is a really important factor when considering a potential employer. And the younger generation, which we know prioritises values, is not afraid to speak out when entering today's workforce. So I think, in other words, what we're trying to say is that CSR and ESG is not only the ethical thing to do, but it's now a necessity in today's human-powered economy. And there's an expectation from today's workers, customers, consumers, and key stakeholders for businesses to be doing the right things in this space. Next slide, please, Jo. So how did skills become the heart of CSR and ESG? And I found it quite difficult to sum this up in a slide because I think in many ways it's quite a multifaceted topic. As skills development, in my view, can touch many different parts and layers of a CSR or ESG agenda. And I'd probably even go as far as saying that investment in skills could be viewed as a golden thread throughout. So if we look at environmental responsibility, for example, by investing in training programs which are focused on sustainability, companies can obviously reduce their environmental footprint. Employees trained in sustainable practices can contribute to energy efficiency, waste reduction, and resource conservation. Green skills, so development in areas such as green technology, renewable energy, and sustainable supply chain management fosters innovation, and this leads to the creation of environmentally friendly products and services aligning with environmental ESG targets. If we look at the social responsibility angle, we know that investing in skills development enhances employee satisfaction and engagement and retention by providing opportunities for career advancement. And obviously that aligns with the social pillar of ESG, which focuses on the well-being of employees and communities. And I think skills development programs can be tailored to promote diversity and inclusion by offering training and upskilling opportunities to underrepresented groups. And obviously that helps companies meet their CSR goals related to equality and diversity. Companies that extend skills development programs to local communities, such as youth engagement initiatives, apprenticeship recruitment, and working with colleges and providers and organisations such as ourselves to develop new courses to tackle skills gaps, all contribute to societal improvement. And I think that really does help to address social inequalities, reducing unemployment, empowering marginalised groups, and supporting economic growth. And our panellists have really got some great examples of this to share with us today. Then looking at economic responsibility, a workforce that is continuously developing its skills is more adaptable and innovative, which contributes to long-term business success. And this not only meets immediate CSR and ESG targets, but it also ensures the company's sustainability in the future. Investment in skills development as well can also be quantified and reported in ESG and CSR reports. And I think these metrics can include, like, say, the number of training hours provided, or the percentage of employees upskilled, or the impact on employee engagement and productivity. From an ethical viewpoint, obviously, with ethical leadership, continuous skills development in areas such as ethics or compliance or corporate governance ensures that employees and particularly leaders adhere to high standards of integrity and transparency. And this obviously strengthens the governance pillar of ESG. And then lastly, stakeholder engagement, demonstrating that commitment to employee development builds trust with stakeholders, including investors, customers and regulators. And this trust is obviously crucial for achieving and maintaining high ESG ratings. So, as I said, I'm not an expert on the topic, but there are just kind of a few ideas on how we think that skills development plays a part in CSR and ESG. And I'm pretty sure we're probably only just skimming the surface on a potentially huge topic. But we would really love to hear from L&D, CSR, ESG, social value professionals on your views, and if you think there's anything that we've missed. Next slide, please, Jo. Thank you. So the role of City and Guilds in CSR and ESG. Before we move on to the main part of the session next, our wonderful panellists, I just wanted to talk about the role of City and Guilds in CSR and ESG and provide some kind of practical examples of how we are partnering with large organisations. So looking at that external societal impact, we collaborate with a lot of employing partners on skills related projects, which could be about tackling skills shortages in a particular sector. And the projects that Shell and IBM are going to talk to next are a really good example of that. We have a huge network of delivery partners through our college and provider networks. So we're easily able to connect employers to providers or even employers with each other. And when it comes to tackling skills shortages that we're facing, we have, absolutely found that collaboration really is key. And, that's how we have the most impact. We have a number of qualifications and resources around sustainability and green skills, including some recently developed ESG e-learning modules. We also work with organisations that have got social value targets to meet if they've won bids and contracts, and they often come to us for support in fulfilling those targets. So, they may have a number of a target around the number of apprentices that they need to recruit or a number of work placements that they need to achieve, and they often come to us to support and project manage and fulfil that kind of whole element of their contract, which of course makes their life easier. And of course, we've got a wealth of experience with apprenticeships and endpoint assessment.
Sorry, just one second.
Thank you. We're experts in the delivery of apprenticeship programs, and we help employers, employer providers, and apprentices to develop the skills they need to build brighter futures and transform industries. Now, we are an endpoint assessment organisation and we offer EPA services across a wide range of sectors. I think we've certificated now over 80,000 EPAs with a 90% pass rate, and have some fantastic EPA resources to help prepare learners and give them the best chance of success. We also support employers with their own workforce development challenges. So we help them to maximise their in-house training programmes. Through recent surveys that we've published, we know that 44% of workers' core skills will change by 2027. So that investment in training is crucial. And we also know that 99% of employers have seen at least one internal training programme fail within the last 5 years. So we do have employer partners working with us, asking for us to support them with our end-to-end solutions through our skills consultancy employer advisory service. And that's where we kind of help organisations either design and enhance their L&D roadmaps or help them to deliver quality training programmes, or through to helping them to properly evaluate their in-house training to ensure that they're able to demonstrate that return on investment, which aligns to their strategic goals, which we know is really important for that ongoing investment. And lastly, but certainly not least, we offer recognition services through our Assured Quality Benchmark, which recognises excellence in training and sets training apart from other skills development programmes. So employers often come to us with challenges such as, they've got poor attendance or there's a lack of engagement on their programmes. So they're really looking for that external recognition to help solve those challenges. We offer City and Guilds or ILM assured programmes, and programme participants achieve kind of dual branded digital credentials, which help to make those skills that they've achieved visible and demonstrate the investment that organisations are making in developing their workforce. So, okay, that really concludes the intro to the session, and I'm now going to pass over to my colleague Gemma, who is going to introduce today's wonderful panellists, but you will be hearing from me again just at the end of the session to wrap up. So over to you, Gemma.
Thanks, Sarah. So as you said, I'm Gemma Edwards. Like Sarah, I'm a client manager at City and Guilds, and we are delighted to be joined on the panel today by Luca Travalos from Shell, Vicky Bradley-Spencer from IBM, and Alex Kemior from RockCorps. So before we hear from the three of them today, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about their roles at their various organisations. So starting with Luca leads on Shell's UK social commitment to support 15,000 people into jobs by 2035, with a focus on the energy transition. So far, thousands of people across the UK from all backgrounds have benefited from the energy transition training and support through Shell's employability charity partners like Catch-22 and Generation UK. And around 600 unemployed people have already been supported into jobs. Luca has 15 years' experience in education and social impact programmes. He is an impact, governance and government relations specialist. Luca ran a public sector innovation team and launched an award-winning employability programme for 16 to 25-year-olds at the DCMS arm's length body National Citizen Service Trust. Luca also served as a company secretary and strategic advisor for the NCS CEO and chair. Before NCS, Luca spent 2 years as a program director for Teach for India in Delhi, establishing India's foremost teacher leadership development program. He was curriculum lead at 2 London secondary schools in Lambeth and Westminster. As a Teach First ambassador and on-purpose fellow, he is a passionate advocate for vocational and on-the-job training programs, such as apprenticeships, which can unlock careers and opportunities from people from all backgrounds. We also have Vicky from IBM. Vicky is the Corporate Social Responsibility Leader for IBM in the UK and Ireland. She has a key focus on education and skills, in particular establishing organisations and underserved individuals to benefit from the IBM Skills Build programme to improve their access to careers in tech and digital. She inspires IBMers to engage in volunteering so that collectively IBMers can make a difference to the communities where they live and work. Prior to leading CSR, Vicky was a marketing and communications leader in IBM, as well as a financial services managing consultant. Before IBM, she was a managing consultant at PwC, a new product development manager at Barclays Bank. Vicky lives in East London, and outside of work, she's helped establish a girls' football club, is a manager and coach, as well as plays football herself. She's also a school governor at a secondary school in Tower Hamlets. And last but by no means least, we have Alex from RockCorps. And Alex is head of partnerships for RockCorps, a pro-social marketing company that uses music and culture to inspire action, either volunteering for community projects or engaging in skills and career development, undertaking strategy and partnership roles across both public and non-profit sectors. Alex has a passion for unlocking social impact through people's strengths and interests. And before we move on to the panel discussion, what we'd like to do is allow Luca, Vicky and Alex to give us a bit of a flavour of what they've been doing at their organisations in relation to CSR and social impact. So first we're going to be starting with Luca from IBM, then handing over to Vicky and then Alex before we head into the panel.
Thanks very much, Jan, for the kind introduction. It feels like a lot when you read it out loud. I might have to cut down that bio. But nice to meet you all. I don't know, obviously we're a group of people that don't know each other, but it'd be lovely if people felt able to, and they were in a safe place to be able to come off camera, because it's just a little bit more energizing to speak to faces than black and white screens. But I totally understand if you can't. Thank you, Sarah and Gemma. Yeah, lovely to speak to you all today, and hopefully we'll get into some detail as we go through the panel. But I just wanted to say a few things about that first bit of the introduction, my role for Shell, which is to lead our strategy and employability around getting 15,000 people into jobs with a focus on the energy transition. I sit in the sitting today in the Shell Centre, right opposite from IBM's building, actually. So you might say hello later, Vicky. I sit in the corporate relations department in the country chair's office, and work with social investment, and our kind of CSR forms part of our wider corporate communications and government affairs in Shell. So to tell you a little bit more about it and how we got to be working with City and Guilds, 15,000 people in jobs by 2035 is a big and ambitious goal. And why has Shell decided to commit to this goal? Well, Shell is a global energy company, as all of you will know, that aims to become a net zero energy business by 2050. And we've got a long history in the UK. We're now headquartered in the UK, and a number of different strategic priorities related to both keeping the energy flowing for today and providing the kind of oil and gas and energy needs that the UK needs to keep its energy security, but also transitioning to the energy sources of the future. And the big thing that we identified when coming up with the strategy back in 2021 under the previous CEO is that the big enabler to reaching that net zero goal that frankly isn't, or kind of wasn't being concertedly, that concerted effort wasn't being focused on it at the time, was the people that are actually going to do the replumbing of the entire system. So people in green, what quote unquote green skills or green jobs. Look right across the board, there are shortages across the piece. We need 33,000 electrotechnical engineers. We need 6,000 welders just in Scotland by 2030. And by the way, the welder salary is starting salary because of that it is massively distorted. So a starting salary for welder in the northeast of Scotland is about 100k at the moment. So we've clearly got issues across the system. And one of the ways that Shell wants to tackle this is by committing to a jobs target to support people into green jobs. And the way that we have approached that is in a classic supply and demand model, because you can't train people for jobs that aren't there. And one of the big problems with addressing this issue is it's hard to predict exactly where jobs are going to be needed and when. I've given you a couple of stats. We know that there are electric vehicle massive shortage in skills in EV, for example. But it's hard when you speak to individual electricians to know exactly where those jobs are coming up and where. So what we've done is decided to approach it in two ways. One, by investing in a really robust skills ecosystem with really high quality providers like City and Guilds and Catch 22 and Generation to attract more people into these roles, and similarly to invest in colleges and kind of statutory education, because we know that dramatically underfunded colleges are the kind of stalwarts of and the backbone of our vocational qualification system in the UK, and City and Guilds is helping us with both the kind of development of the qualifications, but also qualifying our Pembrokeshire College, which we'll talk more about later. And then on the supply side, the kind of unique role that Shell can play in the ecosystem as a kind of massive integrator with a huge supply chain is to bring organizations together, bring industry together with those skills bodies to go, right, what exactly is that, let's drill down into the complexities of the skills gaps and the friction in the system, and what can we do to kind of unplug it. And the kind of example of that, the final piece of that, is investing in startups, which we know are going to be some of the big employers of the kind of future net zero economy. So just to sort of give an example before I sort of hand over to my colleagues on that, what we did with the City and Guilds is in looking at this particular skills gap around EV, we got together our supply chain, we got Ubitricity, we got a number of colleges, we spoke to City and Guilds, and we said what could be done to kind of quickly address or nudge the skills ecosystem in the right direction here. And City and Guilds were fantastic in collaborating and innovating a kind of an upskilling qualification for existing level 3 electricians on apprenticeships or other courses that they could quickly qualify in order to be able to work on EVs, knowing the amount of demand coming and the way that would have benefited their careers. And so we piloted that with a small number of people across a couple of London colleges, one just across the down the river from me in Lambeth, and we are rolling that out in phase 2 because it's had such success. We can share around the impact report after that, but really had success from the way that City and Guilds can bring together. They were exactly the right partner to be able to speak to that challenge, to be able to speak to industry, but also kind of the skills system and bring them together to problem solve on a unique challenge like that. And it's why we've decided to work with them to qualify our Pembrokeshire Energy Transition Skills Hub, which is one of the largest skills hubs in the country. They will be doing a control panel, control systems engineering, which is useful for all kinds of energy systems, and absolutely the skills that are needed for the future. If I had a kid at college age now, mine are too little, I would 100% be telling them about Pembrokeshire College as well as Fife and Aberdeen, because they will be the kind of vocational palaces of the future, and hopefully we'll get to talk more about them later. I will stop there.
Thank you, Luca. So over to you, Vicky. Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you. And thank you,
Thanks,
Sarah, for the context setting, and Gemma for the introductions. And Luca, really good to hear about what Shell is doing. So my name is Vicky Bradley Spencer, and I lead corporate social responsibility at IBM in the UK and Ireland. I should start by saying happy birthday to City and Guilds, 146 years old. We're not quite as old in IBM. We're 114 years. But for a tech company, that's quite old. And we've got a big legacy of doing corporate social responsibility. So although I'm based in the UK and cover UK and Ireland, I'm part of our global CSR team, and we have a global mission. So our global mission, which was set back in 2021, is to upskill and reskill 30 million people by 2030. So that's a huge number. I've just got a proportion of that for the UK and Ireland, thankfully. But yeah, a big number. And then we created a subset of that in 2023, which was to upskill 2 million in AI by 2026. So they're the big numbers that we focus on. And so what my role is to take the global programs that we have in IBM and then work out which ones would work here for the UK and Ireland, and then find a way to embed them and make them work. So the program that we use a lot in the UK is called IBM Skills Build. And that's really where we started with City and Guilds. So IBM Skills Build at its heart is a learning management system. It's a platform. It's got thousands of pieces of content on it. It's completely free. It's in 20 different languages. It's got tech skills, digital skills, professional work readiness skills, and anybody can access it. So when I say anybody from age 13, 14, so sort of year 9, 10 at school and then upwards. And so it's there as a resource. So my role is to get as many people taking advantage of this as possible. So the only way that we can make that happen is through collaboration, because as IBM, we've got the willing people, we've got the volunteers who know their stuff, and we've got the tech, but we don't have the access and the networks and the connections with the people that need and would really value and benefit from having access to this. So that's why we collaborate. So we started with City and Guilds some years ago. So Skills Build was launched just before pandemic, so it was end of 2019. And a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we started with City and Guilds Foundation. So the strategy then for me in the UK was to find different charities and organisations that could really target in on the audiences, the underrepresented communities that we wanted to access. So that's how I started, and I worked with lots of organisations. So, for example, Salute My Job, who focus on people leaving the armed services and looking for work, moving into civilian life. So we work with charities like that. We work with 10,000 Black Interns. We've worked with the National Autistic Society, so all sorts of different organisations. But then latterly, what we've been doing is really focusing on scale, because it's great when you work with smaller organisations and you can create real impact for individuals. But how do you enable more people to access something that you've got? So that's where City and Guilds came in. So what we've done this year, and actually there's a link in the chat if you want to have a look at it, is we've worked with City and Guilds to create some really short pathways in Skills Build, because as I said, there's tons of stuff in there and you can get lost. City and Guilds learning experts looked at what we've got, and they've created 4 short pathways. So they're all less than 4 hours long. The most popular one by far is the AI one. So, we've got thousands of people who have, clicked on it and have started to do learning now through City and Guilds. But it's getting it out there. It's really important that we create ways for people to access free education, because we really want to focus on, it's not all about degrees. So it's about skills first, and how do we do it? And one of the advantages of Skills Build is that it's externally accredited through Credly. So if you do learning on there and you do a badge, then you can download it, put it on LinkedIn, put it on your CV, and it's all for free. So, and it's industry recognised. So that's a really important differentiator for us, and to make sure that people can access it. So hopefully that's given you a flavour of what we're doing with City and Guilds, but you know, through the questions later, there might be more chance to talk about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. And on to Alex.
Lovely, thank you. Hi everyone. Yeah, hi, I'm Alex. Crikey, it feels like I'm following titans, not just individually, but institutionally, hundreds of years old, whereas we're far younger through our Apprentice Nation programme. It's only been going for 5 years. I'll give you a little bit of a flavour of what we're about. Hopefully the youth bit is on our side as well. We, as Sarah introduced, we work with brands, we work with music, and we connect purpose to essentially inspire young people to not just make a positive difference in the world around them, but a positive difference for themselves as well. And through Apprentice Nation, particularly, we have a focus on connecting young people to skills development, and career opportunities they wouldn't normally feel like they can access, basically to help them shape their future. Why is this important? Well, hopefully some of you have seen the stats this week around unemployment, and the unemployment rate for 16 to 24-year-olds is stark compared to the general unemployment rate, and that hasn't really shifted. And one of the things that we really believe in is actually that young people are awesome and that they've got tons to bring to the table, and there are really great opportunities out there, but there is a bit of a disconnect. It can actually feel a little bit intimidating or inaccessible to get to some of these amazing opportunities. We sometimes describe it as, we know there's a ladder, but sometimes people can't even reach the ladder, and that's what we're trying to do. That's why we work with brands. How do we do this? We essentially have a model of be entertained, get trained, go far. So I'll just break that down quickly. So be entertained. We work with brands to put on amazing music events, great gigs with artists that don't just speak to young, underrepresented audiences through their music, but also speak to them through their journeys as well. Having artists that are going through that career development, being able to share in a really authentic voice what they're finding challenging, but what's working for them as well, and being able to bring that to life. By Get Trained, we again work with brands. Once we've engaged young people through the music, they've got an opportunity to join our platform. And through this, they can gain access to online curriculum around soft skills, career development, unpacking industries, demystifying roles, just understanding what the hell it was all about. And then finally, through Go Far, we work with brands to connect young people either to apprenticeships, further education opportunities, working with the brands or wider, or potential mentorship opportunities as well, again, with the brands, with partners we work with, and the wider landscape. We talk about the messenger being as important, if not more important, than the message. I could talk about this all day, but I can't bring it to life nearly as well as this awesome little video we've got. So I'm going to shut up there, and hopefully this will bring to life exactly how it feels for our young people.
Welcome to Apprentice Nation. And it's all about getting into a career that you love, and that is exactly what you're doing right now. You are shining bright.
For today's generation, it's the best place for them to step out in front of people and be like, yo, I'm here. But as long as they've got the skills, they're going to have the confidence to do that.
I thought the show was absolutely amazing.
You could vibe to it all day.
I was almost in tears.
This is your show, your story. Make it legendary.
Empower yourself, listen to a pep talk, listen to a podcast, fuel yourself with fire and go and try it.
By the time I came to my interviews, I was ready.
If man really wants to do anything, he can do anything.
No knowledge is lost knowledge.
Just be yourself, be as authentic as possible.
And focus on the best you.
What are you lot playing at? What's this?
We're done!
Woo! My journey of Apprentice Nation has been truly amazing.
I've been able to have that kind of insight, the mentor sessions.
Apprentice Nation has really changed my life.
We've invited in more than 200 young people from Apprentice Nation.
We want the young people that are here today to ensure that they have the skills needed to thrive. you can actually get a degree with an apprenticeship, which I never knew. That was mind-blowing to me.
Pick where your passion is and pick what you're good at and what you love.
If you keep going, you're going to get your shot, trust me.
And remember, you are in control of your own destiny.
So get involved and shape your future.
Dig deep, you've got this.
Awesome. Yeah. Hope everyone enjoyed that. I still get a little bit of goosebumps from it. It's why I do the work we do. And yeah, just to kind of say, we're at a real maturity point, and I think what we're really excited about in terms of our collaboration with City and Guilds is they've just been able to assure two of our programs, our Work Ready program and our Youth Advisors Network. And this is just super important for us because we are all about giving tools for young people to open doors, and credible tools as well. And what happens, kind of being able to connect of real youth voice with such institutional credibility and authority is just really exciting. So yeah, it's a great time for us to be kicking on.
Wow. I mean, thank you, Luca, Vicky and Alex. I mean, what an amazing start before we get into the questions. What I'm going to do, firstly, anyone who'd like to turn cameras on, we'd love to see you all, get some engagement going. I think that really helps with any kind of panel discussion. What I'd like to do is, with all the questions, firstly, I'm going to ask yourself, Luca and Vicky, and then Alex, because your angle is slightly different given the organisation that you are, just kind of slightly reframed question to kind of really speak to the work that you're doing. So first question, starting with yourself, Luca. What are the key drivers for your organisation to invest time and money into CSR and ESG initiatives?
Yeah, so yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for the video, Alex. It's thanks for bringing the energy this morning, because it's it's not a bad morning outside, but I'm in a slightly dreary part of the office, so it's hard to get the buzz, but that definitely gave it to me. And I love the work that Apprentice Nation do, especially at a time that youth services particularly need very kind of high impact and kind of youth culture. Somebody who speaks their language and meets them where they're at is very much needed. And yeah, thank you for highlighting the statistics. I was actually going to bring up the same statistic of youth unemployment, because it is something that we all should be taking very seriously as we think about our CSR strategy and skills. There are 1 million vacancies in the economy and about 872,000 unemployed young people, which is a higher proportion than other age groups, and lots of young, and it's getting worse. It's worth an approximate £69 billion apparently to the economy if we were to reduce our youth unemployment to the levels of the Netherlands, which is entirely doable. And so I just make that little plea before I answer your question to say, when you are thinking, if you are at the beginning or if you were even in the middle of your journey here, think about how we put pathways for young people at the heart of what we do, because they are the future generation. So, and indeed, if you're a young person on the call, please come off and ask a question later. I may pick on my own apprentice who's on here, Abdullahi, if no one does. So the driver for Shell really is, look, we want to be in the UK. We've been in the UK a long time. We're globally headquartered here. Our investments are decades into the future, right? When we decide to do a new project, a carbon capture storage project called Acre off the coast of Scotland, it's 10 years, in the planning before anything even starts to become operational. So we are by inherently long-term investor in the UK. And so it makes sense. It makes complete sense that we would be investing in people and communities. We've always, Shell has a long kind of, and probably they don't talk about it very much, I realized when I came in here, but a long history of very tight environmental assessments for their projects, very constricted community and people considerations. noise around plants, flaring. These are things that within our team we are constantly talking about how we impact our community. But this 15,000 job ambition is something slightly separate from that. That's about what we can do proactively, what we can do with our responsibility and the profits that we make in the UK. Companies like IBM, like Shell, there is a responsibility to not just the people immediately in our frontline community, but to the UK. And jobs and skills is a really tangible way in which, it's a kind of a no-brainer. It's a way in which, not just through our operational delivery. And by the way, a company the size of Shell, you wouldn't be surprised to hear the last economic impact report supports about 78,000 jobs through its, not just its supply chain, but the kind of induced economic impacts of the spend that then goes on because of the kind of gross domestic product kind of products and services generated by Shell's operation, and approximately about 12 billion to the UK economy. So it is massive. The kind of contribution is vast, but the focus on for the CSR strategy on jobs and skills is it's one we take really seriously. So we kind of run it through a really robust set of a kind of governance framework with every single partner that we work with, as we did with you guys, and we do with Catering 2, and we do with Generation, to make sure that the training that people are getting on the courses that we are funding are high quality, aligned to gaps and sort of skills gaps for green energy, aligned to our own strategy about where we want to go in terms of the jobs and skills for the future green economy, and that they're having a good experience. And we can talk later about kind of impact management, but the driver is a long-term license to operate in the UK. But as Shell are always with their drilling operations or their kind of offshore or their skills programs, if we say we're going to do something, we absolutely make sure that we do it well and do it responsibly. And so it's those sorts of dual drivers.
Thanks, Luca. And the same question to yourself, Vicky.
Brilliant. So just a reminder then, so the question is the drivers of why we invest in these initiatives, yeah? So Luca talked about responsibility, and that's absolutely critical for us in IBM. And we've got three key drivers really. So the three drivers are closing the skills gap, and actually Sarah used the same stat that I really like as well from the World Economic Forum, about 44% of everybody, of people, need to be reskilled by the end of 2027. So that's a huge number. There are other stats now. So last year, the demand for AI specialists increased by 40%. And then by 2030, 729 million people are going to be using AI. So there's huge and very rapid changes in technology fields, which means that skills are needed to be developed all of the time. So people constantly need to be working on them. So that's the first one, about closing the skills gap. The second one is around skills first. And I touched a bit on this when I was doing my introduction, but this is about people being skilled through alternative routes. So of course, degrees are important, but that's not the only way. So a lot of people who might well have the ability and the skills are being overlooked because they don't have degrees. So it's about encouraging skills first approach rather than degree first approach. There's a stat from the Burning Glass Institute that found if companies reassess degree requirements in their job postings, 1.4 million jobs could open up to workers who are skilled through alternative routes. So that's again, a big number there. So we've got a real focus on that. So that's the second one. And then the third one is about fostering inclusion and driving innovation. So those two are linked. So it's that that need to ensure that we've got diversity in the people that we employ in tech fields, so not just for us in IBM, but for all of our clients and everybody in the industry, because you need diversity in order to drive innovation, because otherwise, biases develop, and you need the people who are creating and innovating to be representative of the whole community. So that's a really key part of of who we're trying to reach through what we're doing in our program. So making sure that we've got diversity in the tech industry. So yeah, so those are our three that we're focused on.
Thanks, Vicky. I think those are some pretty big statistics around skills, and I think the fact that an organisation like IBM is really championing, that approach, outside of degree education is really important. Thank you. And Alex, so go and get it from a slightly different angle. What are the key drivers for the brand partners that you work with to invest that time and money into CSR and ESG initiatives?
Yeah. So probably, a couple of reflections, and we've heard some of it already by how Luca and Vicky have framed their work. My first reflection is definitely, look, the key driver isn't just about making the world a better place or improving skills for young people. One of those recurring themes for the partners we've worked with is the investment in any kind of project with us is completely aligned to propelling their businesses forward. And actually, we have to be really, really conscious of that, of like, what are some of the sometimes tactical and strategic things they're trying to achieve. So, example, our collaboration with Amazon, amazing apprenticeship program, but something really important for them about having a public affairs story that really cuts through and kind of gets attention and brings to life their program in a very different way. Our partnership with LucasAid, really, really keen to unlock the potential of young people, but also to connect with them as an audience and to sell more product and be the product that stands out for them and shows that they're supporting young people. So I think, well, and obviously we've worked with others where just the employer brand and like the pipeline and kind of getting young and diverse talent in is really, really important. But I suppose, I'd come back to, it's not the driver bit, but the investment bit that's kind of really key for me. And I think investment in CSR or ESG is basically the same as the reasons for resourcing any part of your business. What are you investing in? How is it? And how is you going to see that return in terms of what you're trying to deliver as a business?
Thanks, Alex. So Luca, going back to you with our next question. How do you measure the return on investment, and not just kind of in those financial terms, but the impact that the work you're having around CSR and ESG social impact is having at Shell?
I was hoping you were going to ask me that. Am I able to share a slide that sort of summarizes this? Are you happy for me to do that?
If we have the means to, Sarah?
I actually think we're only able to share one slide, and we've already got that slide shared.
As in I can pull it up. As in, like, I will.
Yeah, share your screen.
It's sort of, because I just think it brings it to life.
Will that work? Give it a try. Give it a try.
Let's try that. Let's try that.
Sorry, I'm not the most.
So is that? Can you see that?
We can see it. Thanks, Luca.
Great. All right. Let me take it full screen. So we have we have built a dashboard is the kind of short answer to this question. So as I alluded to earlier, we take the way that we measure impact incredibly seriously, and we think this is a sort of pretty neat. But happy to, we haven't shared it too widely yet, so happy to kind of to have a bit of feedback. Please refrain from taking screenshots until it's been through our full governance process. But essentially, every dot on the map is a person who's been through one of our skills programs, and we have ways to you can see the different colors of dots are different programs that we and different partners that we work with, and they pop up in according to where they are in the UK. We anonymize all that data, so we've got the first few digits of the postcode, not the whole postcode. We don't ever see who that person is. They're entirely anonymized, so it's all GDPR compliant. Point being, this is a really useful tool to exactly Alex's point earlier. So not only for us and our colleagues within the team to go, right, how many people are we reaching? How many people are coming through our programs? You can see over 2,000 people are trained so far in the programs that we've run over the last year, 600 people into jobs. But the next slide, which I won't show you because it's a sort of slightly more sensitive, we can also go, okay, what's the demographic characteristics of these individuals on programs? So we can see we've got half of the people engaged in programs, particularly the kind of data for energy skills program, are female. That's a good and positive direction, knowing that those, female underrepresentation in data. I'm sure you, Vicky, would be pretty pleased with that if you had those sorts of stats on one of your skills programs. We can see, demographic data on ethnicity, and we can importantly see from the postcode, the kind of what we call the IDACI index. You can't see it on this exact screen because it's a little more sensitive. We can see that the programs are reaching people from the kind of the poorer postcodes, which by a kind of composite measure of socioeconomic. So that's really important if you're running any kind of impact program. But why that's also important is, to Alex's point, so this is not just good social impact, but it's actually good for business too. So say, for example, we have a meeting or we have a project around Manchester, and as I alluded to earlier, our country chair, which is the sort of senior most person in the UK, who represents all of our UK businesses, is going to meet with Andy Burnham. He will ask me, "Oh, Luca, how many people have we got? How many people do we support in Andy Burnham's in Greater Manchester, or how many people do we support in this particular constituency? How many of them are into jobs?" And I can say, "Great, we've got 3 programs here. Let's bring one of our social impact partners to your meeting." And just demonstrate some of the kind of social impact work that underpins some of our business. And those 2 things go side by side. So for City and Guilds, for example, we might bring you along to a meeting in West Pembrokeshire, if we're talking to stakeholders there, or in the City of London, where we've had colleges, you've supported people on colleges in Lambeth, where we go, right, tell us more about what you're doing to not just come and bring charges to when in bids for, because you have a on-street charging business called Ubertricity, but actually what you're bringing to that bid on top of the kind of the commercials is the social value. And social value has become an increasingly important part, as many of you will know, of particularly local authority and government bids. And if they are requiring, sometimes up to 20% of the value of a contract is awarded on the basis of the fact that you are delivering on a number of different metrics, social value. This tool enables us to actually quantify exactly how many jobs or skills outcomes are happening and exactly where they're happening, so we can actually have a really robust, one of the criticisms of social value in the construction sector over the last years is that it's easy to claim something or to say you're going to do something. It's much harder to show that you're actually doing it, and this tool enables us to do that, and in so doing provides a kind of a value to our businesses, and a kind of continued mandate for the work. So I will, hopefully that was okay and clear. I will stop sharing now.
It's great, thanks, Luca. It's actually really nice to see that visual, because it brings to life that return on investment and seeing actually, the impact it's having on kind of like the UK. Vicky, the same question to yourself, obviously from IBM's perspective, how do you measure that return on investment, again, in terms of reach and engagement, but also looking at that long-term impact it's had?
Yeah, so Luca, that's really impressive dashboard. I'd love a dashboard like that. So, we're IBM, we measure.
Let's talk after this. We can go for lunch.
We should do. We're IBM, we love data, we measure all sorts of things. I have a really straightforward measure that my CSR programs are measured on, and that's engaged learners. So how many people are actually doing learning through IBM Skills Build. So that's what we look at. So the ultimate measure that I would like to be able to get to is how many people have we actually helped into jobs. That would be the dream measure. That's really hard to get to, and I tell you why, for a few reasons. So when you sign up, and if any of you do this, when you sign up to Skills Build, we do not collect data. We do not collect it on purpose so that we have the sort of entry sort of gateway barriers really low, so that we encourage people to make the most of Skills Build. So all we know is that people who are based in the UK are using it. So that's the only measure I've got, and I know whether or not they are a high school, so age between 13 and 18, whether they're a teacher or whether they're an adult. So what we do is, though, we rely on our partners, on the organisations that we collaborate with. So, for example, let's take Salute My Job, because I mentioned them earlier. So they know their end learners. They know exactly what they're learning, and they don't just use Skills Build. So they use all sorts of other learning providers. And they know how, and they help their learners get into jobs. So the organisations that I tend to work with are those that help bridge into employment. So through the partners, I know how successful their learners are, and then we can tweak and we can look at, what kind of learning they need access to. So for some partnerships, for example, we actually purchase paid for licenses for them so they can still use them for free. So it sort of enhances what that offer is, but that's how we know. And then you have the human stories, and Luca sort of flashed up a slide there then which focused on 3 individuals, and of course that's what we do as well. So we talk about the individuals that we're impacting and their stories, and how Skills Build might have helped them get into a job, because we cannot be arrogant enough to suggest that Skills Build is the thing that helps them get a job. It might be one of the factors, but it's down to them as individuals and other things they've done and their circumstances. So in terms of measuring, I talked about the goal that we've got, 30 million. Well, with all the things that we're doing, we're 11.5 million people on the way towards that. So we've still got a way to go before we get to 2030. But in terms of on the ground impact, we do rely on our partners working with us to give us that insight. So yeah, that's my response. Thank you.
And hopefully with the badges that those learners receive at the end, the sharing and getting people to really share their success stories through that as well will start to tell a story.
Yeah. And I have got all of that insight, so I know exactly what people are learning and how much learning and how many badges and all those kinds of things. But it's kind of, the ultimate really is to help people into jobs. I mean, that's the dream stat that we'd like. So yeah.
Vicky. And Alex, so onto yourself. How do you measure the return on investment at RockCorps, looking at the investment in terms of reach, engagement, but also maintain the legacy of the initiatives that you're running?
Well, first off, I'm glad Vicky said it's hard to do, because it is. And I think what we tend to do is, it's largely linked to our previous question about drivers. It's that collaboration up front about, well, what do you care about and what do you want to achieve as a brand partner? And I think what's interesting sometimes is about being a bit more tactical about the impact. So one of the examples that really struck us was a TikTok collaboration with LucasAid. We ran a bursary program for them, created this amazing content, and then that content became part of their part one of their campaigns, which looking at, reached 5.5 million users, absolutely outperformed their usual click-through rate, was brilliant. So we've got that best of both worlds in a way. We've got these amazing stories of these young people who are able to transform their career opportunities through these bursaries, and they're able to show again from a business perspective, this is a story that cuts through, and that we've been able to reach in a really deep way across their target audience. So I guess what we come back to is we again, Vicky alluded to this. We do a lot of surveys with our young people. We follow up with case studies. We are doing some of that tracking in terms of what is that youth experience at the moment. It's almost a bit more like input data actually than output data, if I'm perfectly honest. It's helpful that way. But connecting that then with some kind of harder business metrics, I almost feel a bit like some of the stuff we look at isn't the sort of thing you might expect to see in a social impact report. but by having it there actually strengthens some of the social impact outcomes and difference you might be making. Oh, you're on mute, Gemma.
You're on mute, Gem. You're talking away there.
It's really insightful what I was saying then as well. Thanks for letting me know. So I was just saying, now I kind of want to ask a question more around the organisational level. So again, going back to yourself first, Luca, at Shell, how do the people within Shell and your organisation feel about the investment you're making? And what impact does that have on your organisational culture?
Yeah, thanks, and thanks, Vicky, for mentioning about you spot on the last question. Impact is got to be about human stories and depth as well as data. And I just didn't share those. I'm sorry for flashing them up quickly, but I didn't share with you the learner stories in detail because I didn't ask them in advance for permission. But I've sent you a little video of one that's public for one of our learners on our Generation Sustainability Project Officer role, which is an 8-week bootcamp in retrofit. How do people feel about the program that we're doing? So overall good. I'd say actually remarkably positive. I think it's worth saying for other sort of CSR professionals, HR professionals in the room, it's a journey, and the journey goes up and down. And I would say I was lucky to come into an organization where there was already, and in fact, it's one of the reasons I joined from 15 years in the youth and education, to come into an organization like Shell, because the mandate was kind of there already. So there was quite uniquely, I felt, from what else the other kind of CSR roles I was looking at, and perhaps Vicky or Alex can share more about how unique it is, and maybe they've sort of been in this space longer than me. There was a goal, or there was a sort of commitment to supporting jobs and skills, and there was already a goal, but just no idea how to get there. But importantly, the goal was sitting alongside the other country priorities, the business priorities, which I think is quite unusual. I haven't sort of seen that in many places. Often CSR is a sort of nice to have on the side, and it's a sort of softer edge thing that we talk about to make ourselves feel good, rather than kind of core, absolutely essential to business. And it was already there. So in a way, that made my job slightly easier, because I was the person who was coming in to do okay, well, how do we deliver on this goal? Let's get somebody who knows the youth sector and has delivered employability and impact programs before. And so that was kind of slightly easier, but there was definitely some skepticism, right? Initially, you've got people who've, social impact is a sort of strange anathema, and they're like, but it's not making money, is it? And so what's, what it's just, you're going to give us some nice stories so we can put on comms. And I would, I'm slightly kind of, people were very polite, but I definitely got the sense that, and speaking sort of candidly, I needed to demonstrate that what we were doing was rigorous, that what we were doing was robust. And while there was senior sign-off for very senior levels, there was no conflict. It was the thing that we were doing. There were certainly people, colleagues who, I needed to remind myself that at the initial meetings, it was okay. Just a reminder that the reason that I know one of the first things I do was create a kind of why deck. Like, let's just remind ourselves, we know that we're doing it. It got signed off, but we've kind of forgotten why we said we were going to do that thing. Let's just remind ourselves, we want to be in the UK for a long term. We need a societal license to operate. Our projects are multi-year and cross multiple changes of government. If people don't know and have a good feeling about what we're doing here in the UK, our business will be impacted. So it is not just a fluffy, nice to have thing. And by the way, we're going to do it really robustly, and in the kind of data that's. And I say, so that's the first thing, is like, you need to get the mandate and continue to sort of make your case for the mandate by doing it well. But the other bit is, we'll be quite canny, and I don't know if she's on the line, but my colleague, brilliant colleague Nikki, who leads on our engagement of staff. Shell has like 4,000 staff in the UK, right? So one of our major assets is not just the money that we can give, but also the talent and expertise of the people in the building. And that is one of the things that our partners say about us. We're building a long-term relationship with them too. And that can benefit their clients. So if we've got a refugee program with Breaking Barriers, we have staff in any kind of job or field that you could hope to have a mentor in that are ready and willing to mentor you. And by the way, when they do, they then go and talk to their line managers about what a fantastic program it is. And we've been very canny at making sure that we get senior folks to sponsor programs. So each one of our individual programs now, I'm sure the same will be the case with the next phase of City and Guilds, has a senior member of our UK board who knows about it, who turns up to the events, who gives the addresses, who encourages people to volunteer. So in that way, you know, I call it sort of slightly, you know, it's referred to as the dark arts of perhaps of CSR, but for good, for positive reason, right? You're embedding, you need to continue to make the mandate for these things because businesses are busy and people forget and they move on. And by embedding people into the process, you make the case and make the case for change and make the case for social impact even more strong.
Thanks, Luca. It's not an easy task, and I think, you know, you're right, that stakeholder engagement at senior level is key to making most things work, isn't it? So, yeah, same question to yourself, Vicky. You know, for organisational level with IBM, how do people feel about the investment you're making and the impact it's having on organisational culture?
So I'm lucky in my role in that I've got responsibility for volunteering as well. So you know, volunteering is a big part of who we are at IBM. We all get recognised for engaging in IBM volunteer opportunities, but also doing our own things outside of work. We get rewarded for volunteer hours, and then we can give those to charity. So it's a big part of our culture. So that's how we all operate. So one of the things that I've been really deliberate about doing is encouraging IBMers to use their skills. So if they are a cybersecurity professional, for example, put that to good. So, you know, focus on using those cybersecurity skills and, you know, get involved in outreach and go out and do that and use IBM Skills Build. So encouraging IBMers to use IBM Skills Build as a resource to support them in the volunteering that they want to do. So we do an awful lot of outreach with schools, with colleges, with universities, because, you know, Skills Build is an online resource. It can be a bit dry. Some people might not be motivated enough to go and explore and actually do stuff on it. So we do go in and run lots and lots of different face-to-face workshops. So the feel thing about CSR is I make sure that I link it to the volunteering along with Skills Build. So that gets a lot more engagement. It also means that we can reach all of our IBMers across the UK and Ireland. So, you know, not everybody lives and works in London. You know, we're all scattered all over the place. So it means that regionally we can have an impact. So, you know, just recently we've been in Birmingham doing work in the West Midlands, and then, you know, in Manchester we've got a key focus there, key focus up in Scotland. And so it enables IBMers to get involved, so they feel part of it. So from a sort of a team building, feeling proud to work for IBM, that's all really important. And then, of course, from a leader's perspective, it's, you know, it's super important. You know, the government care about the social value framework. They care about what we're doing as a large corporate. If we're a supplier to government, you know, our business leaders need to be able to talk about how we're creating impact in different parts of the UK and Ireland. So they care about it from that perspective. So, you know, it comes at it from all angles. You know, the key thing is kind of getting people involved and kind of seeing the value, you know, not just for themselves, but for the broader communities where they live and work, but then also linking it, as Luca was saying, everybody's really busy. So if you can link it to clients and to business work as well, then kind of everybody wins. So that's that's how we help them feel good about it.
Thanks, Vicky. And I think that links back to what Sarah was saying at the beginning about people, when they're looking for organisations they want to work for, they're conscious around impact and things like that, so much more than probably when I was first looking for a job. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. You know, when I think about you know, our most willing volunteers, we call them our early professionals, but they're really all the Gen Z IBMers. You know, they're the ones who want to be out and about, and actually they're really inspiring. You know, they're the ones that really connect when we're trying to reach people in secondary school and teachers and people starting out in their careers. So yeah, so it's appealing to all different sort of levels and areas within our IBM workforce.
Thank you. And Alex, going on to yourself, you know, looking at that organisational impact, but also what's the feedback around impact you get from your brand partners as well, you know, with all the work that you do with these different types of organisations, through the project work that you do with them, what's the organisational impact they get out of the work they do with you? It's your turn to be on mute now, Alex.
How irritating. Anyway, well, maybe it's not so bad because Luca and Vicky have nicked all my best lines anyway. But I think what I would love to emphasize here is I know you talk about the organizational, but it really starts with the personal for us. And I'll just give you an example. Like everything we do, it's about creating a shared space for the young people and the brand partners we're working with. And I don't think anything there isn't a better example of that than the gigs themselves. And actually, obviously we've got the skills development sessions and mentorships and ways to kind of connect via impact, but actually connecting around enjoying a space and sharing a space is great. And I have my experience from our Koji Radical gig last November in my head, where I created this beautiful little partner space by the bar where people could be. No one wants to be there. None of our brand partners want to be there. They want to be in the crowd with all the young people, dancing around to payback, just having an absolutely awesome time. And I think those are the moments. I think that's it. It's creating those moments through our projects and our delivery where staff from our brand partners really get a personal connection with a moment, a personal connection with a young person. And that's what comes back. And that association then with their employer. And certainly we've seen that feedback that being able just to be part of this actually increases their connection to their company and that employer brand strength as well. So yeah. But Luca's point I wanted to emphasize as well, that it being a journey, like that's really accurate. Feelings progress and change, and you are part of that journey as well. And I think being really aware of that is quite important to kind of keeping the strength of that project and strength of that engagement throughout.
Thanks, Alex. And I think, you know, the fact that the brand partners you work with are able to have that kind of engagement in such a different environment as well. I can't imagine there's many other circumstances where they'd be able to do that.
No, probably not. That's
No. Right, so I'm conscious of time. So what I thought I'd do is look at, well, I think we've probably got time for one or two more questions, but I want to make sure we've got enough time if there's any questions from everyone else who's on the Zoom today. So what I'm going to ask next, starting with yourself, Luca, is looking at, you know, those partnerships. So how does working with key stakeholders and in partnership with different organisations like ourselves at City and Guilds underpin your CSR and ESG success?
Yeah, it's absolutely key. Yeah, I would say on the, you know, to the example of City and Guilds. So each, I said, with each of our partners, right, we go through quite a rigorous and robust, often painful selection process to get there. We deliberately don't, you know, you won't have, somebody asked in the chat to share more about the programs. We have a website, but that you won't see an opportunity there to go here, apply here. We deliberately don't. We do unsolicited applications. We don't do a kind of wide call for applications because we really want to work to kind of co-design things with specific individuals. And so people do come to us through the selection process, but we kind of put them through a very robust set of kind of reviews and peer review and multiple rounds of applications, so that when we do contract with an organization, because we want to work with them for a long time and give them a decent amount of money for what they're doing. We're sure that we've got the right partner. So I'd say the first part is in the kind of partner selection, and often some of that can be, it's an art and a science, right? We do systematize, as you'd expect from a big infrastructure company, and a sort of person with a project management background, we do systematize it. But actually, a lot of it is sort of chemistry as well. Like, you do have to get a lot. You're going to be talking to these people quite frequently, and there needs to be a good working relationship. And so we do go and visit partners and go and see how their delivery is going, and go and try and get under the hood of the decks that they're sharing with us. And then so collaboration is key, right? All the way through the kind of even the design of the thing, because what we're doing here is, I don't want to be as grand as to say it's never been done, but it hasn't really been done, right? There is this massive green skills shortage, and when we came around to begin with, there aren't City and Guilds is quite a unicorn in this space. There aren't hundreds of thousands of organizations, all these big monopolistic players who are just amazing at delivering the jobs that we need for the future. We kind of had one of those, and maybe Vicky will talk to this a little bit. When we had the digital skills revolution, organizations sprung up to take advantage of digital skills bootcamp training and got pretty good at doing that. That's one set of things. It's an entirely different set of things for all of the skills that you need to replumb the energy system, from electricians to welders to retrofitters to domestic energy assessors. There is no one-stop shop for all of those things. And so inherently, in the nature of what we're doing, we must be collaborative, and we are designing something new. And it's partners like City and Guilds with a kind of long history, the 176 years of history and of collaborating with charities, with skills bodies, with business, with government to design the qualification of the future. It absolutely made sense for us to work with them. And on that specific example, it's kind of crazy that didn't exist, right? That the EV upskilling for existing electrical engineers, because electrical engineering, for those it's talking slightly jargony now, but it is an absolute essential qualification for most of the things that we're going to need in order to, most of the shortage skills in what quote unquote green jobs, most of the quote unquote green jobs that people are talking about are probably things that people would think of as being brown or traditionally kind of carbon intensive jobs, but when the output of them is green. So an electrician or a welder, high carbon intensive process, but actually outcome of putting up a wind turbine is a green job. So trying to do some sort of green skills education as I go with this answer as well. But the point about collaboration is these things don't exist. It was crazy that there are hundreds of, there are thousands of electricians out there who aren't even thinking that there's this big EV skills gap coming. They're just trying to get through their day and earn a bit of money. There are thousands of boiler engineers who aren't thinking that heat pumps are going to come and transform the way. But actually, you need organizations with a little bit more future focus, corporates like Shell, and with a kind of innovation expertise that City and Guilds have to go, right, let's us do the thinking on the future, because we know that this is, we can't wait until we get to crisis point before we've started to design constructive pathways. And that's exactly what we did with EV. We trained a number of people through 3 London colleges. We're rolling it out next year. We've certified our Pembrokeshire hub, and we want to do even more with City and Guilds because of the way that they are able to collaborate across industry and skills.
Thanks, Luca. And just conscious of time, so Vicky, on to you next, and then Alex, straight to you after that before we see what questions we've got in the chat.
So as Luca was saying, collaboration is absolutely key. At the start, I talked about that we're good at some things. So we're good at the tech. We know what we're doing. The learning management system that is Skills Build is the same as the one that we use internally for all of our employees globally. We've got expertise. Skills Build isn't just IBM content. It's also content from world leading organizations. But what we don't have is we don't have access to the end learners, the people that can really benefit from it. So that's why collaboration is key for us. So that's why we need organisations like City and Guilds. And you know, it's as Luca was saying, we're stringent in terms of the partners that we work with, but we have different kinds of partnerships. So we have much lighter partnerships as well. So if it's just a question of signposting and doing some light touches, you know, that's fine. But then with some other organisations, we work much more deeply, like, for example, with City and Guilds. So, you know, it's a balance, and it's about making sure as many people benefit from the overall IBM Skills Build program as we can. So, yeah, and it's, in terms of the feedback as well that we get, not just from learners, but from our partners, and working out what people need for different industry segments and different ages, different stages of career, etc. as well. So yeah, collaboration is key.
It's key.
And I'll dive in quickly after that. So I've mentioned already, for us, those two key components, message and messenger. Essentially, partnership, it underpins the success of both of those. So, you know, being partners with it's the right artists, the right brands, the right skills facilitators, the right community organizations to deliver that message and have the right tone, or whether it's collaborating with, again, the right brands, or you know, our partnership with City and Guilds is really, really important about giving weight, authority, and credibility to a message that lands with people, and actually that partnership to connect on. You know, we would stress always, you know, what are we first and foremost? We are a youth engagement vehicle. We're great at getting young people interested, but if we've got nowhere for them to go, then that's a bit of a waste of time. So that partnerships of making sure that we are a proper bridge, and that we are sending young people into the kind of spaces where they are going to find their future and thrive is super important. So yeah, I mean, just echo everything that Luke and Vicky have said.
Thanks, everyone. I think it just, you know, demonstrates, you know, getting the right people, everyone playing to their strengths to really, you know, hit those milestones that you're looking to. I think that's all the time we've got for questions now. I'm going to pass back to Sarah.
Yeah, so oh, wow, that was just amazing. I knew this was going to be a topic that people had a lot to talk about, and we're kind of going to go over time in a minute. So, but we do have just the one audience question that I just want to pull through. It's for yourself, Vicky, actually. Jane, would you like to take yourself off mute to ask Vicky your question? So Jane is from Centre Island Hotels, and Centre Island Hotels have a number of Holiday Inns, Holiday Expresses, and Crown Plazas. And I know Jane because I work with Jane as well. I support Jane as her skills partner. So thanks for joining, Jane, and happy for you to take your mic off to ask Vicky the question.
Would help if I took it off. Sorry, I'm a Teams girl, not a Zoom, so forgive me. Hi, thank you so much. Today has been fascinating and insightful, so thank you so much. It was just, yes, I work in hospitality, and yes, I would like to engage with you, Alex, further, because I'm on the committee with 17 other global hotel brands, and would very much like to link with yourself to see how we could partner for the future. Vicky, it was just, you mentioned earlier about increasing your reach. I was fortunate enough as well to work for Foot Asylum. They had an ingenious sales strategy, probably about 5 years ago or so, where they engaged with, you know, when it was becoming a big thing, they were one of the key businesses in the UK to start down this pathway, and they collaborated with the famous influencers on TikTok and Insta and YouTube, and they linked with the likes of young Philly. For those poor kids out there that know who he is, they've doubled their growth. They now have a wider social reach than Nike, who, as we know, have been going for 300 million years, and are a global brand, whereas Foot Asylum started about 12 years ago, and now their growth is phenomenal. So it was just to see whether that's a route that you've gone down. Obviously, the market segment 16 to 24-year-olds. So again, in terms of your program that you're trying to promote.
Great question, Jane. And because my background is marketing and comms, I wish I could say that we had. So the way that we work in IBM is that I'm CSR. So I don't sit in our marketing and comms area. So I don't have brand budget. I don't have advertising budget. So that's why when we were talking about collaborations earlier, they're absolutely key for us. So I need to work with the right organizations. So all of the sharing that I have to do, it has to be organic. That's what I rely on, and maybe what I should be doing is working with partners who are really good at that. That might be my next sort of search, actually. But yeah, and it's interesting, you know, when we had the questions earlier about measurements and that kind of thing, because lots of organizations that approach me talk about, oh yeah, it's going to help your brand reputation, it's going to help your reach, etc. I don't get measured on that. We don't measure that in CSR. So it's a nice side thing. It's a nice kind of halo effect. But actually, the ultimate thing is how many learners have we got on there? So you could argue that we would be able to get there faster if we invested in advertising and that kind of activity. But I need to rely on collaborations. So yeah, really good point.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jane. That was a brilliant question. Thank you. And I'm sorry we're now kind of 1 minute over time, but I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much to our amazing panelists for taking what I'm sure is very valuable time to join us for the session today and to share the great work that you're doing. For me, I found it really inspiring to hear. And, you know, if we are going to create change and make a positive impact to the huge challenge that we are facing around skills, we do need more organisations like yourself doing this great work. And it really is, for me, all about that collaboration. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining today's call. And thank you to everybody that attended today's session. And we will be sending out a recorded version. But just to finish off, please do speak to us. If you've got an idea for a skills related project, or you'd like to, you know, support the future skills need in your sector, if you want to talk to us about how you can embed skills development into your CSR or ESG strategies, or you've got more ideas than what I shared at the start of the call, then please contact us. You know, if you want to keep up to date with policy updates, how to maximise your apprenticeship levy, which is soon to be the growth and skills levy, or any support around apprenticeships or endpoint assessments, then please reach out. Or if you do want support with developing or enhancing your kind of skills strategy and maximising your L&D to develop your high performing workforce, then again, please reach out. So on the link of the last slide, we will be sharing a link to booking a skills conversation with us, or you can just reach out to the email addresses on the slide as well. But yeah, if you'd like a skills conversation, you know, please follow the link. We'll also share some recent reports that we've done, which might be helpful around pathway to productivity, and our training trends report as well. And once you're linked in with us, we do kind of send out these quite helpful reports that might be useful in your role. So yeah, thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. I really hope you got something out of the session. I hope you got some helpful insights, and I hope it sparked some thinking about how you might want to support skills development if you're not doing already. So thanks, everybody.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.